Welcome to Conch International Film Fest Filmmaker Chat, led by George Alexander. He will be chatting with CSIFF filmmakers Charysse Harper, Director of the Jill of Trade, Dwayne LeBlanc, writer and director of Olympic Village 2028, Gabri Christa, writer and director of One Day at a Time, Tonya Bolton, writer and director of Paulette Bolton, Birmingham's Phenomenal Woman. Media veteran George Alexander's credits include 2022 Audible audio documentary series Funny My Way, hosted by JB Smoove, TNT's American Race, hosted by Charles Barkley, ECM 538 What's Happening to the Republican Party, TV One Night Only, live from the Essence Festival, and BET's nominations for episodes on Maya Angelou and India.Arie. He wrote the VH1 series Black in the 80s and the Doubleday books Why We Make Movies and Queens. Welcome, George.
Thank you so excuse me. Thank you so much. It's great to be here. I'm very excited. Congratulations to everyone affiliated with this amazing film festival, and welcome filmmakers. Let's jump into it so that we can get as much in as possible. So I thought we would start with you, Charysse. We'll go down the line and tell us where what island are you representing first, and then tell us what inspired you to take on the subject matter you took on. I mean, that documentary is not easy. And so we know that choosing the subject has to be something to which you are committed. So tell us all about the Jill of the Trade. What's that all about, and how you got involved?
Hey, thank you so much, George. Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. I hope everyone's doing well. As George said, my name is Charysse Harper, and I am the director and writer of the Jill of the Trade. I'm representing Trinidad and Tobago. So all my Trinis out there, woo woo! So thank you so much. This festival has been great. Yeah, I got some love out there. This festival has been great. Thank you all so much for organizing it. I think we need a platform to showcase our stories and stories from those from the islands. So I decided to do the Jill of the Trade. It is a short documentary about 5 women from around the world who work in male-dominated professions. And I did this during the COVID-19 pandemic lockdown. I actually wanted to make a feature-length film about female bullfighters. But of course, when the pandemic happened, I could no longer do that. All the corridas or bullfighting arenas closed. So I wanted to take on a smaller project, something still showcasing female empowerment. And that came on my table. I was writing a dissertation about women in East Africa who are able to obtain microfinance. And I'm like, wow. So now these women are now the breadwinners of their homes. And then from there, I thought about women from around the world who aren't only breadwinners, but take on jobs that we all think are, just a job, a plumber, a mayor, a priest, but to them, it could cost them their lives. So I really wanted people to realize that this is a problem, not just in, for example, in Afghanistan or in Colombia. It's a problem all over. And I feel that these women were able to project their lives in 3.5 minutes. They each spoke for 3.5 minutes to tell their story.
Brilliant. And a quick question for you. How did you pivot? I know you got a grant for the other documentary, I understand, right? For the bullfighting. How did you pivot in 2020 to then take on a different subject matter and still, commit to that and really get the story you wanted to tell?
Yeah, it's always hard. I'm pretty sure all the filmmakers here can understand when you're so passionate about something, but then you're unable to do it. It can be a bit depressing. So I'm not going to lie. It was more of, oh, what do I do now? So in thinking about things that I enjoy, which is I really wanted to highlight female empowerment. In my previous documentaries, I focused on the Trini culture. So I did a film about the steel pan, about carnival, and of course, the American aspect, looking in Los Angeles and the Super Bowl. But I wanted to do something that encompassed women. And the female bullfighter one was on the way there. So I just really still wanted to do something. And because it was during lockdown, I'm like, what can I do? I still want to make a film about women. What's a good subject matter? And in writing my dissertation, I was doing a master's program at the time. I decided, why not? Let me utilize what I'm writing for my dissertation and try to make something cinematic about it. So it kind of just came up on its own. I wanted to make a film and I wanted to do something about women. So just joining what I had going on, it actually worked itself out.
Beautiful. You're obviously committed to women's stories, so that's beautiful in and of itself. So, Gabri, tell us about what you're representing, what island, and tell us
Yeah,
what inspired
hi.
you to pick on your film.
Yes, hi. So thank you for having me. And I hear a fire alarm. Not sure if I'm supposed to do something, but if you hear it in the back, I'm sorry.
Here you will, so that's the good news.
Yeah. So I'm representing Curacao. Curacao. I actually have two films, One Day at a Time, Un Dia Cada Momento, and Son, which is a shorter film. The One Day at a Time is a half-hour documentary about Leo Floridas, which is was my yoga teacher, but it's a black man who started, um, 60 years ago, an ashram in Curacao. And it came about because I only saw mostly yoga magazines, white, thin women on pages. And I wanted to tell a story of somebody who was such a pioneer and I think an important person to get visibility. Yeah. And then Son I shot that during the lockdown, and it's a woman who keeps on hearing the voice of her son in her ears. So
Good deal, very good. We'll get into more discussion as the panel goes along. So, Dwayne, tell us about your project, what island you're representing first, and then your project and what inspired you to take it on.
Yeah, I'm representing the island of Dominica. And what inspired it, it was kind of actually this film was a little bit of a commission project during the 2020 lockdown.
And remind us of the title, please, just so the audience will know what film you're talking about, please.
It's called Olympic Village 2028. So it tracks, South Central LA, kind of like mid-century modern architecture, and follows the story of someone who moved from the South during like the Great Migration into LA in a time where, it was particularly kind of dangerous. And so it's like, someone moving from Alabama to LA, and like that's kind of like what the film is centered around. But the film really tracks the kind of growth and evolution of a family living in a place and kind of like building their house and kind of expanding and growing outward. So,
yeah, well, that certainly spoke to me. I'm from Alabama, and I have lived in LA. But for those who don't know, LA has amazing mid-century architecture, right? I mean, some of the most interesting places, little restaurants. I mean,
yeah.
it's really fascinating stuff. Good deal. So, Tonya, tell us about what island you're representing and
Hi,
all about your story.
I'm here all the way from England, UK, and I'm representing Jamaica and Cuba, and just really honored to be here. I am known in England as a playwright and screenwriter, and phenomenal woman, Birmingham's phenomenal woman, Paulette Bolton is the first sort of documentary short I've ever done. And it was just really important to me for two reasons, really. One is my mother, Paulette Bolton, is a huge figure here in Birmingham, UK. She's a pioneer and a trailblazer. And it kind of dawned on me that there are so many trailblazing pioneers from the diaspora that don't really realize the magnitude of what they have achieved, not only for themselves, but for their island, for everything. And so I really wanted to shine a light on my mother's achievements to her, but also to shine a light on back in the 1950s, there was a large number of Caribbean people who came to the UK, who were invited to the UK and to bring their skills and services here. And when they were here in England, it was a hostile environment and they were given the worst jobs, and my mom was one of those people. And, she became the first nurse prescriber ever in Birmingham to prescribe medication as doctors would do, write prescriptions. She became the first advanced nurse practitioner. She became the first of many, many, many things. And I just believe in giving people their flowers while they're here. We can all speak well about people at their funeral, but they ain't hearing it. And so I just really wanted to celebrate my mom, but also shine a light on those nurses that worked just tirelessly to contribute to the health service of this country.
Fantastic. Well, we've learned in the last 2 years that nurses are probably some of the most important people on the planet ever.
Yeah.
We haven't gotten that message yet. I think a lot of people found out. So that's wonderful. So we'll start back with you, Charysse, again. What were some of the challenges? I mean, all filmmaking is hard. As you know, art is hard. But what were some of the challenges you ran into in making your film? And how did you overcome those challenges? Because I think there are filmmakers out here probably in the group who are going through those same challenges right now, trying to make their dream project. Can you speak to that, please?
Yeah, sure. So one of the biggest challenge in making any film is, of course, getting the subject, meaning the actual characters, whether they be actors or they be in a documentary. So in making The Jill of the Trade, I have 5 women, one from Eritrea, one from Afghanistan, another from the United States, one from Russia, and one from Colombia. And I wanted to get actually 6 women, one being from Kiribati, because I wanted to represent every section of the world. But again, I was filming this during the COVID-19 pandemic, and the internet was so bad in certain places that I just wasn't able to get the women in Kiribati. But I was, I jokingly say I was stalking women for about 3 months, going online, contacting embassies, consulates, high commissions, just trying to see if they can put me in touch with the first female commercial pilot in Lebanon or the first female firefighter in India. There are so many first females just happening right now that it's incredible. And I wanted to get various women to highlight their stories. So I think the hardest part was finding the characters. And then secondly, because it was the whole COVID-19 period, so I recorded the interviews through my computer, so through Zoom, but I had to get these women who aren't filmmakers. So I have a plumber, a mayor. I had to get them to be filmmakers themselves. I had to ask them to film their own B-roll because I couldn't be there to do it. So training people who aren't filmmakers, cinematographers, to film something and film it well, it was a challenge, but it was something unique because without the COVID-19 pandemic, I would have never done something like this. So it was a nice challenge, but I think that we were able to overcome it because they wanted to share their stories as much as I wanted to. So they ended up being my cast and crew.
That's pretty fantastic. And speaking of that too, do you think you got something more authentic perhaps with the women filming themselves, or were they able to sort of allow themselves to be a fly on the wall, so to speak, or their own, I mean, sort of a willing subject, if you will, in that situation?
You know what? Most of them, except the mayor, because she's a public figure, most of them were very hesitant to the idea. They said, wait, I agreed to do the interview, but I'm not I'm not an actress. And it was a lot of coaxing, especially the priest. She's the oldest participant. She is 81 years old. And camera, photos, not happening. So I was able to get one of her colleagues to film and take some photos, but she was very uncomfortable with it, just being old school as well. But I feel that because I kept on saying your story will be told around the world, and these injustices that you face, because the woman from Afghanistan talked about how the Taliban tried killing her multiple times. And I'm like, they need to hear your story. So think about it like this. And I feel that because they were willing, they knew that their story could go further. They were willing to be a bit vulnerable and be a bit real for the camera.
Wow, the power of persuasion, right? That's what we have to do as filmmakers. A lot of begging, pleading. Yes. That's the part of the job. Gabri, tell us about your challenges in getting to the finish line, please.
You know, I feel like every film that I did on these 2 were sort of on the way to the big film. I just got my first funding, not my first funding, but funding for the project that I wanted to do 20 years ago when I decided to make films. And it's in Suriname. And just for this particular project, getting some funding has been really hard. And so, but these 2 films, both One Day at a Time and Son, I did with a really small cast. And before that, I produced Tula, The Revolt is a film, $5 million film on Curacao. And I had bigger budgets. And then with this one, these were both projects, and I sent them in that I just had to do. I had to make this film about my yoga teacher. And the hardest part in that one was that, he had a lot of archival footage that was great, but I didn't know, I started out doing a 5-minute film and it became half an hour, I didn't know as much about his legacy. That's actually much more important. He studied with some of the most amazing gurus who came to Curacao back in the day, and to get permission to use it. But the other day is that I never knew that he actually was about to die. So he was really quite weak when I was filming. So it was just going around working with him and getting the trust and having him be vulnerable on screen. In the end, it really was like he was dialysis. He had it was just a really inspiring journey with him, just to figure out. I would Skype him and interview him while he was on dialysis with his one remaining kidney. And so just dealing with his health issues was harder. And we did the whole film, just 2 women. Then the second film is really about a woman, a Black mother, really worrying about her Black son. And so it's a bit of an experimental film, but I wanted to do it and was in the middle of COVID. So I am director, producer, camera, light, grip. I did everything alone, the whole film. And so it was a challenge, but in a way I feel like it's so freeing for me to be able to just say, I want to tell the story. I'm not going to wait for money. I had no money. And it got in a lot of festivals, got even 2 prizes. We really want to just tell something. No, it's not the best camera I'm working with, but I have myself. I know how to shoot. I have this decent camera. I had my stabilizer at home, and this was like in the height of it. And so it was both a challenge and it was just really great. And then the one thing that was challenging, it was really about her worry. And then while we were filming, her son, who was like 6 feet and 14 at the time, 6 feet, really dark skinned, black dreadlocks guy, but he plays the violin. He was sitting playing the violin in the car, and that was apparently so weird for a Karen that the police was called on him, and which it was about, right? So that was challenging in that particular film. But overall, those were my lower budget films that both did well, and then just really come to show that yes, if you have a story and you have yourself and you have a camera, you can make a film.
Yeah, by any means necessary.
By any means necessary,
right? Yeah.
Yes, yeah.
Fantastic. Tell us, what about for you, Dwayne, with Olympic Village 2020? What were some of the hurdles you ran into in making your film?
I was thinking about this, listening to other filmmakers here. Filmmaking is always challenging. This particular film was, it was really time. Like, I didn't have much time to make the film. It was just a very, very quick turnaround. But I did want to tell a story that I felt was, I have to tell stories I feel like I have a connection to some degree. But I feel like I had maybe 2 to 3 weeks maybe to make this, which is no time for a film. But the thing, I think every filmmaker, a lot of filmmakers and artists, there are things that are brewing in this. Maybe it's not shaped like a film. Maybe it's just shaped like things that you are connected to or want to pursue. And I found with the parameters that I had to make this film that there was something that really quickly kind of connected. But using the apparatus of filmmaking, was able to say, I want to speak about migration. I want to speak about family, let's say. I want to speak about the kind of like architecture and design that takes shape in some place that we necessarily wouldn't go, like South Central LA, if you're not from there, what have you. So I was able to kind of connect this story, and the story was from a friend of mine, his uncle, who he told me a story about his uncle a few times over the years of us knowing each other. I just always found it fascinating, the idea of someone kind of migrating during the Great Migration. What's that like to leave your place and come to a completely new place, and almost it being, kind of aggressive and all these different things. But I didn't want to focus on that. And being like a first-gen American here, any story tied into migration and leaving a place or wondering about a place you left or what have you, anything around those realms, I'm immediately attracted to. So all these things kind of connected really quickly, and it's one of those moments where I'm sure all of us have at some point just really just locked in and kind of like got to work. And that is the exciting part. So even the challenge of it all, of the things I just mentioned, in the end, I feel like the time constraints, there was no budget, things like that. Still being able to create, and it was in 2020, the height of our lockdown. So it was just also really a big challenge navigating the outside that time, but also being able to just like really just focus on, which was great, was to focus on something that wasn't just watching the news, whatever we were doing in that time, worrying about someone not wearing a mask, whatever the thing was. So it was really a good relief as well, working on film. So the challenge obviously comes with a great reward. And I'm just happy to be able to share it and be able to speak. It can speak to people now. It's almost a shocking thing to be able to share it as well. So.
Good deal. Thank you for that. Tonya, what about you?
Yeah, I had a couple of challenges with Birmingham's Phenomenal Woman. One of them, as I said, was that my genre is writing plays and TV shows, and this was a documentary. So I felt really kind of out of my comfort zone in that, but loved every minute of it. But it was just a case of sometimes feeling that pressure, especially because it was my mom. I wanted to excel and do an amazing job in an industry where I had never done a documentary before. My second challenge was keeping a secret, because how I did it was that when the documentary was finished, I had like a huge, I hired out a cinema. I think you guys call it a theater, but a cinema. I hired out a huge theater. I invited hundreds of people. My mom was not aware of this. She wasn't even aware I was making a documentary about her. I had to sort of say that I'm making a documentary about empowering women. And I'd love for you to just say a few words. But my mom is very, very, she has what you call this sixth sense. So, and I'm a terrible liar. So I had to really, the whole project was like a secret. And I think the last challenge I had is that my mother has been a nurse for 56 years now. And there were hundreds of people that wanted to contribute. And I had to kind of narrow that this was a documentary short, not a three-part blockbuster movie. So I had to really pick wisely who I wanted to contribute and make sure they kept the secret. And I think another thing that I found very challenging as well is, in the end, I ended up with maybe 40 hours of footage, and I had to condense that into, I think it's like 27 minutes. And that alone nearly like gave me a breakdown. That was so difficult to take. You have so much amazing footage, and then to condense all that down into 27 minutes, that was the challenge of my life. And because the theatre was already booked, people were invited, I couldn't kind of postpone it till I spent more time trying to work things out. I just had to be very disciplined with my time and really focused on, this is what I want, this is the message I'm trying to convey. And then she came to, I told her I won an award, and I would love to have her come and see me be presented with an award. She came to the event. She had no idea that this documentary was about her until it began to play. And it was the shock of her life. So, yeah.
I'm crying. That is just too much. I hope there's footage of her. Do you have footage?
That's a wonderful story.
Oh my God.
Wonderful story. Because I was going to ask you, how did you get your mother to agree? And then you've already answered all those questions. She didn't. Obviously, you had to play a trick on her.
I can't lie. I'm a terrible liar, but I'm an actress as well, and I had to just really, put that work in to to kind of carry it off. But just seeing her face, you know, watching that film, and just the whole theater just crying and applauding for all those years of service that she's done out of love. She, you know, a lot of people that give don't realize the lives that they impact. And my mom she's impacted like so many people, and it's just nothing to her. She's not realized. And I just wanted her to know, you know, what you have achieved is special, and we appreciate you.
How did she react? Was she obviously happy that you had tricked her, or how did she react that night? Beyond the shock.
Yeah, well, she told the audience that she wanted to give me a beating, you know, like the old days. But we're the same height, so she couldn't be doing that. But yeah, she was kind of, I think she was, for the first time in her life, she was just lost for words, because everyone in the audience she thought was there for me. And then she began to see people that she knew there. And yeah, it was something that I'll always treasure, because she still watches that documentary, you know, even now. Wow. And I encourage her to remind herself of the great things she has done. You know, I remember as a child waking up on Christmas Day, and my mom wouldn't be around. And when I would say to my dad, "Where's my mom?" It'd be like, "Oh, she's at the hospital. Oh, she's visiting a sick patient. You know, oh, she's trying to counsel a married couple who want to like divorce." You know, she just did above and beyond for so many people for no extra charge. And yeah, I just wanted to do something really special. And I think because of that, the budget, I didn't care. I knew I could do this. I knew, like, how do you show a loved one just how much they are loved? And I thought, well, this is my skill. I'm a storyteller. I can do this. And so it was a great adventure for me just to learn about making a documentary. And now I have so many ideas for so many more documentaries, not about my mother, but you know, shining the light on, you know, other things that are other subjects and topics that are so important to us as Caribbean people.
Beautiful. That's such a beautiful story. So I'm going to ask everyone this question. We'll start with you, Charysse. You know, we all set out to make us a documentary or write a story or what have you, but then there's always something that we set out to do, and then there's something we can't include, or for whatever reason. Can you share with us, was there something you sought to accomplish, wanted to include, weren't able to, and for whatever reason, tell us why you weren't able to actually do so?
Yeah, so it's so great hearing the other filmmakers, because sometimes you feel like you're in it alone, but everyone talked about an experience they had, and I'm like, oh, that happened to me. I understand what that feels like. So it's so great. Thank you all for sharing your story. The one thing that I wish that I could include was Zarifa. She's one of the only female mayors in Afghanistan. She was talking about how so I'd mentioned how the Taliban tried to kill her on 3 occasions. In the end, they ended up shooting her dad, killing him in front of her. And I really wanted to include more of that story, but I told myself, no, I want to make a short. I've never made a short. Everything has been over 45 minutes, so I guess like a medium. But from 45 minutes to 87 minutes, and I said, no, I need to make a short. So I really wanted to condense it into 22 minutes. And yeah, I just really wanted to include that story. But I think the 3.5 minutes that she talks, you can still feel the power and the pain that she feels from that.
Well, maybe there's a feature there. We'll want to talk about that. You never know. What about you, Gabri? What is there something you in either of your films you really wanted to include, but for some reason you weren't able to do so?
Wow, you know, I don't know. For the 2 films that are here, not really. I mean, with One Day at a Time, Un Dia Cada Momento, that's the Papiamento titles, the language you speak in Curacao. I had wanted a little bit more about Leo's struggle as a dark-skinned Black man in that period. And he talks about how he how yoga helped him find, a lot of himself as well. And it wasn't until I finished the film that he opened up as much as I wanted him to open up. Also, he was in his 80s and my teacher, and he's huge. He also wrote a bunch of books. Had the ashram, had the first health food store on the island, and the part that is about the vulnerability about doing that, also somebody who didn't go to college and did write the books, like that's the part I wish I had more of, and had a little bit of the material. I sort of secretly recorded him, but it was not good enough to include. And once he saw the film, even before he saw the footage, he would have opened up more, I think, close to when he was about to leave the planet, or leave his body, as he said. And I wanted to also, he called when he was about to die, and he's really an amazing yogi. It's just like never like suffering. And I went and I, for the first time, go touch him, and I like his feet, because he was initiated, and he was leaving his body, as he said. And I had wanted to record that moment, because he was so inspiring, talking about death and dying, and how it was so interesting that the body was giving up, but he was so curious about dying. And it was the most inspiring moment of somebody just being excited to see how it was to leave the body, because he always talks about there's the body and there's the spirit, and he lived that as a yogi. And also that I didn't dare having a good recording of the moment he was, when he was going. So, but I still wish I had. I think everybody, the whole world, would have been so inspired by this man. But yeah,
He sounds phenomenal. I wish I got a chance to meet him as well.
Oh, amazing man. Yeah.
So Dwayne, tell us about something you wanted to include, weren't able to do so.
Yeah, I mean, for those who haven't seen the film Olympic Village 2028, the subject is only heard and not seen, and he's also someone who's rather elderly, and he's also slowly becoming more and more blind. So there's something I was playing along with his lack of visibility in a certain way, but intense visibility in other ways, what have you. And also, like, the kinds of films that I make, there's never anything centering a certain type of pain or a certain type of drama. There's usually, I'm trying to make no conflict type of films. But it was something that really inspired me to tell the story in the first place, was the fact that he was so energized by the journey of literally just making his house a home, like over decades. So as his kids got older, or as their lives expanded in certain ways, they literally built out their home. It's a small, home from South Central LA, but the fact that they, put so much pride and time into that expansion was just really just beautiful to me on a lot of levels, especially on a metaphorical level. But the kind of love that he had for his wife, man, like his wife passed away maybe 6-7 years ago, and you really feel the loss, and not necessarily loss in like a mourning way, but really just like he still talks about his wife in a way that is she's still present in a certain way, and like the spaces, like certain rooms in the house are set up a way because that's how she really likes it. And he still talks about her in a present tense a lot of times. And there's a lot of audio like that is really just so beautiful and touching. I wish I could share it in the film. At the time period, I just couldn't find the right rhythm to create that flow into the film. But that is something I really would hope to share with people in some way. Who knows what could happen in the future? But that's something sitting here right now, listening to what's missing some of your films, and I'm just like, man, like it's hard to include everything. And I really wish that people could understand some of the depths of the relationship I personally hadn't connected with this, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it would work with the film or not. So that's always like a challenge for filmmakers across the board.
Yes, definitely. And Tonya, I know you shared with your challenges. Why don't we ask you, though, and ask the rest of the team, what's next and what's your dream project?
Oh, okay. I was getting ready to answer the other question, but what's next?
Or there's something else. I know you said you had a lot of footage. I don't want to leave you out of that conversation about the challenges. You said you had a gazillion hours of footage you couldn't include, but there's something else you wanted to share?
Yeah, just very quickly. My mother, like many Caribbean people, was raised by her grandmother in Jamaica, and her grandmother became sick when she was 9 years old, and my mother skipped school to nurse her grandmother. And unfortunately, her grandmother died when she was 11, just leaving her completely alone and unprotected in the world. By the time she came here at 14, 15 at the UK, she couldn't read or write properly. And she taught herself how to do that through using dictionaries. And I think the thing that I wasn't able to get, I wasn't able to source a photograph of my great grandmother, because she is still such a huge figure in my mom's life. That was the reason why my mother went into nursing, because she was so inspired by nursing and caring for her grandmother. And I tried, I spoke to people in Jamaica, in Cuba, all in secret, trying to source this photograph of this amazing woman who I would love to see and meet, and I couldn't. So that was my only regret, not being able to find that. And I mean, at the moment, I'm working on a sort of like a supernatural thriller TV show, and I already have interest from producers on that. So that's what I'm working on. And you asked me what my dream was. I think my dream is to sort of have my own platform, a bit like Oprah Winfrey or Shonda Rhimes. I think when you have a platform that is for the community, you're not beholden to a gatekeeper that's going to say, this needs to be more this, or this needs to be less that. You have a platform for Black film, for Black television. Here in the UK, it's mainly all the TV channels. Everything is owned and led by by white producers, and I have no problem with working with them. But I feel like it's time to hear more diverse voices. There's so many stories that are untold. That are crying out to be told by us, so that's what I'm passionate about.
Beautiful. That was wonderful. I'm going to get everyone else in here before they close us down here. This has been such a fun panel. Charysse, next and dream. Quickly.
Yes, next, Las Matadoras, dream, Las Matadoras. Same thing, that female bullfighter one.
Oh, very good. What about you, Gabri?
Next is Aisa. It's a film in Suriname. Dutch, most of my work deals with Dutch African or Dutch colonial diaspora. So that's South America, and it's more around dance and music from the different publications to overcome trauma through dancing and music, and how we've survived for so long. And as also experimental documentary. And then I have 2 feature films which are narrative. One eco thriller for young adults. I would love to get money to do that. It's all this project, and that's a bit out of my realm. But I decided I'd like to do that with my daughter. So
beautiful. What about you, Dwayne? I could talk to you guys all night, all day. Go ahead, Dwayne.
I just released my short film called Civic, which is a narrative short. You can find it on YouTube right now. And I'm working on a trilogy of short films that go alongside that film. And the dream is to release it as one piece of as a feature. And yeah, that's the dream as of now, is among many others. But thank you all.
Well, I want to thank you all for this panel. You guys have been amazing. I could just talk forever. We need to, next year, the panels will be longer because these amazing filmmakers I could just talk to you forever. Congratulations. And I can't wait to see what's next and those dreams come true as well. Thanks, Magali, Alani. And we will.
Yeah, thank you all. Amazing filmmakers. So lucky to be part of this group.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. And I
Thank
look
you so
forward
much.
to watching your films, and thank you to the
Yeah.
Conch Festival and a great platform to provide for us. Thank you.